The rain fell relentlessly, a curtain of water blurring the windshield of Logan Blake's sleek black car as he sped down the highway. The rhythmic thump of the windshield wipers matched the pounding in his head, his thoughts a cacophony of numbers, contracts, and deadlines. The meeting he was headed to in the next city could determine the future of his rapidly expanding tech empire. There was no room for distractions. Yet, through the haze of rain and his own preoccupation, something on the side of the road caught his attention. A figure, hunched and shivering, barely illuminated by the faint glow of the highway lights. Logan slowed instinctively, his sharp eyes narrowing as he made out more details. A woman, drenched and clutching a small bundle to her chest. "What the hell is she doing out here in this storm?" he muttered, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. His car came to a stop a few feet ahead of her, the engine idling. Logan rolled down the window, cold rain splattering into the warm interior. "Hey," he called out, his voice cutting through the downpour. "What are you doing out here? You'll freeze to death." The woman turned toward him, her face pale and drenched, strands of wet hair plastered to her cheeks. She clutched the bundle closer, and he realized it wasn't just a bundle, it was a baby, swaddled in a thin, soaked blanket. "Please," she said, her voice trembling as much as her frail frame. "My baby, he's sick. We have nowhere to go." Logan's breath hitched, the weight of her words slamming into him. His first instinct was to call for help. Surely someone more qualified could handle this. But as he glanced at the baby, its tiny face peeking out from the soaked fabric, he knew he couldn't drive away. "Get in," he said, his tone brusque but urgent. The woman hesitated, her eyes darting between him and the car as if unsure whether to trust him. "Look, you don't have a choice," he said, his patience fraying. "You and your baby need to get out of the rain. Now." Wow. Finally, she nodded, her movements stiff and weary. Logan got out of the car, grimacing as the rain immediately soaked through his expensive suit. He opened the passenger door and helped her in, the baby whimpering softly as she climbed into the seat. Once they were inside, Logan cranked up the heat, the warmth flooding the space as the woman cradled her child closer. Her clothes clung to her thin frame, and her lips were tinged with blue. "What's your name?" Logan asked, keeping his eyes on the road as he pulled back onto the highway. "Claire," she said softly, "and this is Max." Logan glanced at the baby in her arms. His tiny face was flushed, his breathing shallow. "He doesn't look good," Logan said, concern creeping into his voice. "Have you taken him to a doctor?" "I tried," Claire replied, her voice cracking. "I couldn't afford it, and we've been on the streets for weeks." Logan's jaw tightened. The absurdity of her situation gnawed at him. How someone could be left in such dire straits, with no one to turn to. "Listen," he said after a moment, "I can't take you where I'm going, I've got an important meeting. But I have a place nearby. It's safe, and you can stay there until I'm back." Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing her face. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." Logan sighed. "I don't need to know you to see you're in trouble. You and your baby need help, and I'm in a position to give it. That's all there is to it." Claire stared at him for a long moment, uncertainty warring with desperation in her expression. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. Logan reached into his pocket and pulled out his spare key fob. "The penthouse address is programmed into the GPS. Use this to get in," he said, handing her the sleek black key. Claire hesitated, her fingers hovering over the key. This feels like too much." "It's just for a few days," Logan assured her. "Take care of your baby. That's all I'm asking." She took the key with trembling hands, her voice barely audible as she said, "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't worry about it," Logan replied, his tone firm but kind. "Just get Max warm and fed." As he pulled into a gas station to let her out, Logan watched her climb into a waiting taxi he had called for her. The baby's soft cries echoed faintly as the door closed behind them. Logan stood in the rain for a moment, watching the taxi drive away. Something about the encounter left him unsettled, though he couldn't pinpoint why. Shaking his head, he climbed back into his car and sped off toward his meeting, unaware of how profoundly his life was about to change. The elevator door slid open with a soft chime, revealing a space Claire could hardly comprehend. Logan's penthouse wasn't just large, it was massive, stretching out before her with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the glittering city below. The sleek marble floors reflected the ambient glow of modern light fixtures, and the furniture, all minimalist and impeccably arranged, looked like it belonged in a luxury magazine. For a moment, Claire hesitated to step out of the elevator, clutching Max tighter to her chest. Her damp, worn clothes and frayed backpack seemed laughably out of place in such an opulent space. "This can't be real," she murmured, her voice trembling with disbelief. Max let out a soft whimper, breaking her trance. The warmth of the penthouse wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, a stark contrast to the rain-soaked streets she had called home for far too long. She took a tentative step forward, her shoes squeaking against the pristine marble. The first priority was Max. She found her way into the kitchen, her eyes widening at the sheer size of it. Stainless steel appliances gleamed under the warm lights, and the fridge was fully stocked with fresh produce and drinks. She grabbed a bottle of formula just bought from supermarket, heating it with shaking hands as she cradled Max in her arms. "Here you go, sweet boy," she whispered, feeding him carefully as she sank onto a plush couch in the living room. As Max drank, his small body relaxing against her, Claire let herself breathe for the first time in days. But the weight of uncertainty still pressed heavily on her. Why would someone like Logan help us? She glanced at the sleek key fob he had handed her, now sitting on the coffee table. People like Logan didn't stop for people like her, not in her experience. But as she looked down at Max's flushed cheeks, she pushed the doubts aside. Whatever Logan's reasons, he had given her and her baby a lifeline. Over the next few days, Claire tried to adjust to her new surroundings. At first, she felt like a trespasser in Logan's world. She was careful not to touch anything unnecessarily, afraid of breaking something that would cost more than she could earn in a lifetime. But as Max's fever subsided and his health improved, Claire began to let herself relax. The penthouse, once overwhelming, started to feel like a haven. One evening, as Max napped soundly in a makeshift bed she had crafted from soft blankets, Claire wandered the penthouse, marveling at its understated beauty. Gratitude welled up in Claire's chest, and she knew she couldn't sit idly by while Logan provided so much. Cleaning became her way of showing thanks. She started with small tasks, tidying the kitchen after meals, wiping down surfaces, folding the throw blankets neatly. But soon her efforts expanded. She organized the bookshelves, polished the marble floors until they gleamed, and even tackled the laundry. As she worked, a part of her felt grounded again. The act of putting things in order brought a sense of control she hadn't felt in years. But even as she began to feel more at home, shadows of her past lingered in the corners of her mind. Late one night, Claire sat by the window, gazing out at the city lights while Max slept soundly in the next room. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, tired, haunted, and wary. She couldn't stop replaying the moments that had led her here, the fights with her father, the threats, the ultimatum that had left her no choice but to run. Claire closed her eyes, her fists clenching at the memory of his words, "You'll regret this. You can't hide from me forever." She glanced back at Max, her heart tightening. She had promised herself she would do whatever it took to protect him, even if it meant keeping secrets from the man who had shown her nothing but kindness. One evening, as she folded laundry in the living room, she caught sight of the news playing on the television. Her breath hitched when she saw a familiar face flash across the screen, her father's. Claire grabbed the remote, lowering the volume as her father's voice boomed in a press conference. "To anyone with information about my daughter, Claire, or her child, please come forward. She's in danger and needs to be found." Claire's hands trembled, the folded shirt falling from her grasp. She quickly turned off the TV, her chest tightening. The walls of the penthouse suddenly felt too close, the comfort too fragile. She glanced at Max, sleeping peacefully, and whispered to herself, "I can't let him find us." Despite her fear, Claire couldn't deny the gratitude she felt toward Logan. He had given her and Max more than shelter. He had given them a moment to breathe, a chance to feel safe, even if just for a little while. But as much as she wanted to stay, Claire knew that her secrets were a ticking time bomb. And when Logan returned, she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep them hidden. The elevator chimed softly as Logan stepped into the foyer of his penthouse. He pulled off his tie, sighing heavily after a grueling few days of meetings and late-night negotiations. He had barely thought about the strangers he had let into his home, assuming he'd return to find everything exactly as he left it, minimalist and pristine. But as he opened the door, he froze in his tracks. The faint scent of something warm and inviting wafted from the kitchen food? That was new. The usually sterile air of the penthouse now smelled faintly of lavender, and soft music played from somewhere in the background. Logan's sharp eyes scanned the space. The marble floors gleamed brighter than ever, The countertops were spotless, and the cluttered stack of unopened mail on his desk was gone. On the dining table sat a simple vase of fresh flowers, their bright petals adding a pop of color to the otherwise neutral tones of the room. His eyebrows furrowed as he stepped inside, the sound of his shoes against the marble seeming louder than usual. "This doesn't look like my home," he muttered to himself, his gaze darting from the flowers to the neatly folded throw blanket on the couch. From the living room, he heard a soft laugh followed by a gentle voice. "And then the little rabbit hopped all the way home," the voice said. Logan turned the corner and stopped. Claire sat cross-legged on the floor, holding an open picture book. Beside her, baby Max was nestled in a pile of blankets, wide-eyed and cooing as Claire read to him. Her damp, worn clothes had been replaced with a simple but clean outfit, one of the spare shirts Logan kept in his closet. Claire looked up, startled. "Oh, you're back," she said, her voice tinged with nervousness as she quickly closed the book. For a moment, Logan was speechless. The sight of her and the baby in his space, so relaxed and at ease, unsettled him in ways he didn't quite understand. Yeah, I'm back," he said awkwardly, running a hand through his hair. What's all this?" He gestured around the room. Claire stood, smoothing her shirt. I wanted to thank you. For everything. You didn't have to help us, but you did, and she hesitated, biting her lip. "I just thought I'd try to make the place look nice." Logan glanced at the flowers, the spotless kitchen, the faint smile on Max's face. "Nice? Claire, this is like a whole new apartment." Claire looked down, wringing her hands. "I hope it's okay. I didn't mean to overstep. You gave us a chance to breathe, and I wanted to do something to repay you." Logan studied her, his gaze softening. It's fine. It's more than fine. I just wasn't expecting it." He caught Max's tiny gaze and gave a small smile. "Looks like he's feeling better," Logan said, nodding toward the baby. "He is," Claire said, her voice warm with relief. "The fever's gone, and he's been sleeping better. Thanks to you." Logan waved off the gratitude, stepping further into the room. "You don't have to keep thanking me. I didn't do anything special." "You did more than you know," Claire said quietly. That evening, Logan found himself lingering in the penthouse longer than he had planned. Normally, he would have headed to his study or dived into the mountain of emails waiting for him. But something about the presence of Claire and Max pulled him in, grounding him in a way he didn't expect. As they shared a simple dinner, cooked by Claire, he listened as she talked about Max's recovery, her tentative plans for the next few days, and little anecdotes about her time in the penthouse. "And then I tried to use the dishwasher, but I think I pressed the wrong button because it started making this weird noise," Claire said, laughing softly. Logan chuckled, shaking his head. "I wouldn't know. I've never used it myself." "Of course you haven't," Claire teased, a playful smile tugging at her lips. The conversation turned to deeper topics as the evening wore on. Logan found himself asking questions about her life, curious about the strength and resilience he saw in her. "Was it always just you and Max?" he asked, his voice gentle. Claire hesitated for a moment before nodding. "It's been just us for a while now. It's not easy, but he's my world. I'd do anything for him." Logan felt a pang of admiration, and something else he couldn't quite name. Later that night, as Claire put Max to bed, Logan sat on the couch, flipping through the channels on the TV. His gaze flickered to the flowers on the table, the cozy blanket folded neatly on the armrest. The penthouse had always been a place of isolation for him, a symbol of his success but devoid of warmth. Now, for the first time, it felt like a home. But his thoughts were interrupted when Claire returned to the living room, her expression tense. "What's wrong?" Logan asked, sitting up. Claire glanced at the TV, which was now playing the news. Logan followed her gaze, his brow furrowing, as he noticed her stiff posture. On the screen, a reporter was discussing a missing persons case, and the image of a man flashed briefly before being replaced by a woman's photo. The resemblance to Claire was striking. Logan glanced at her, his eyes narrowing. "Claire, is there something you're not telling me?" Her face paled, and she quickly shook her head. "No, it's nothing," she said, her voice too quick, too tight. Logan didn't press her, but suspicion began to creep into his mind. Something wasn't adding up, and he couldn't shake the feeling that Claire was hiding more than she let on. Logan's patience was wearing thin. Over the past few days, Claire's behavior had grown increasingly strange. She flinched whenever the phone rang and tensed whenever the news played on TV. Late at night, he heard her pacing in the living room, murmuring into her phone in a voice too low for him to make out the words. That evening, as Logan worked in his office, Claire's voice floated through the hallway. She was speaking in hushed, frantic tones, her words punctuated by sharp breaths. Logan moved closer to the door, catching snippets of her conversation. "Can't let him find us. No, it's not safe." Logan's chest tightened. He wasn't one to eavesdrop, but the tone in Claire's voice left him no choice. "I just need more time. Max is all that matters." When the call ended, Logan heard her footsteps retreat to the living room. He stood frozen for a moment before storming down the hall, his mind racing. Claire was sitting on the couch, staring at her phone, when Logan entered the room. His sudden presence startled her, and she quickly locked the screen, her face flushing with guilt. "Who were you talking to?" Logan demanded, his voice sharp. "And no one," she stammered, avoiding his gaze. Logan crossed his arms, his expression hardening. "Don't lie to me, Claire. I heard you. You're hiding something." Her fingers tightened around the phone, and her shoulders slumped in defeat. "Logan, Who are you running from?" he interrupted, his frustration boiling over. "And why is your face on the news?" Claire's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. You saw that?" "Yes, I did. And I've been giving you the benefit of the doubt, but enough is enough." His voice softened slightly, though his tone remained firm. "I've let you stay here. I've helped you and Max. But I can't do that if I don't know the truth." Tears welled in Claire's eyes, and she clutched her phone to her chest as if it were a lifeline. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the distant hum of the city below. Finally, she took a deep, shaky breath. "I didn't mean to lie," she said, her voice breaking. I was trying to protect Max." Logan's gaze softened, but he didn't speak, waiting for her to continue. Claire looked down at her hands, her words coming slowly. "My real name is Claire Montgomery. My father is Charles Montgomery." Logan's eyes widened. Charles Montgomery was a name even he recognized, a billionaire tycoon known for his ruthless business tactics and larger-than-life persona. Claire continued, her voice thick with emotion. "To the world, he's a powerful man, a philanthropist. But behind closed doors, he's controlling and abusive. My mother left him when I was a teenager, but she couldn't take me with her. I grew up in that house, under his rules, his expectations." She paused, wiping a tear from her cheek. "When I got older, I tried to break away. I wanted to live my own life, to be independent. But he wouldn't let me go. Then I met Max's father, a mistake I'll regret for the rest of my life. My father hated him, said he wasn't good enough for me. When I got pregnant, my father cut me off completely." Logan's jaw tightened, a mix of anger and sympathy rising within him. "After Max was born, my father started trying to take him away from me," Claire said, her voice trembling. "He said I was unfit to be a mother, that Max would be better off with him. He filed lawsuits, sent investigators to dig up dirt on me, anything to prove his case." She looked up at Logan, her eyes pleading. "I had no choice. I had to run. I've been living on the streets trying to stay one step ahead of him. He doesn't care about Max, he just wants to win, to control me. I couldn't let him take my son." Logan let out a slow breath, trying to process everything she had said. He was no stranger to the cutthroat world of wealth and power, but the lengths her father had gone to chilled him. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "Because I didn't think you'd understand," Claire admitted. "You're wealthy, successful, everything my father is. I thought if I told you, you'd turn me away or call him." Logan frowned, the sting of her mistrust evident in his expression. "Claire, I'm not your father. I helped you because I saw someone who needed it, not because of who you are or where you come from." Claire's shoulders sagged and she looked away. "I know, and I'm sorry for lying to you. But Max is all I have. I couldn't risk losing him." Logan paced the room, his thoughts a whirlwind. He felt betrayed by her dishonesty, but at the same time, he couldn't ignore the depth of her love for her son or the courage it had taken to escape her father's grasp. Finally, he stopped and turned to her. "You can stay," he said, his voice firm. "But this changes everything, Claire. I need to know I can trust you." Her eyes filled with fresh tears and she nodded. "You can, I promise." As they stood in tense silence, a sharp knock echoed through the penthouse. Logan's head snapped toward the door, his instincts immediately on alert. Claire's face went pale, and she clutched Max, who had begun to stir in his sleep. Logan strode to the door and peered through the peephole. A man in a dark suit stood on the other side, his demeanor cold and professional. "Who is it?" Claire whispered, her voice trembling. Logan's jaw clenched. Private investigator. Claire's breath hitched, and Logan turned to her, his expression steely. Stay here. Let me handle this. As he opened the door, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of the battle they were about to face. The tension in Logan's penthouse had been mounting ever since the investigator's visit. The man had left with thinly veiled threats, but the next wave of attacks was far more direct. A knock came at the door early one morning. Logan opened it to find a courier holding a thick envelope with Claire's name on it. He handed it to her, and as she tore it open, her hands trembled. "What is it?" Logan asked, his voice steady despite the unease curling in his gut. Claire scanned the document, her face paling with each word. "It's a summons," she whispered. "My father's filed for custody of Max. He's claiming I'm unfit to be a mother." Logan's jaw clenched as he took the papers from her, quickly skimming the accusations. They painted Claire as an irresponsible and unstable woman, unfit to provide a safe home for her son. Claire slumped onto the couch, her arms wrapping protectively around Max, who sat in her lap, blissfully unaware. "This is it," she said, her voice cracking. "This is how he'll take him from me." Logan sat beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "No, he won't," he said firmly. "We're not going to let that happen." Logan wasted no time contacting his legal team, explaining the situation with an urgency his lawyers weren't accustomed to hearing from him. Within hours, a strategy was in place to counter the custody claim, but Logan knew they needed more than just a legal defense. Dig into Charles Montgomery's past, Logan instructed his private investigator over the phone. "Every deal, every scandal, every skeleton in his closet, I want to know all of it." His team worked tirelessly, uncovering questionable business practices, allegations of corruption, and whispered rumors of abuse that had been carefully swept under the rug. Meanwhile, the time Logan spent with Claire and Max became increasingly meaningful to him. He found himself drawn to their small moments, Max's giggles when Logan made silly faces, Claire's quiet strength as she juggled her fears and her son's needs. One evening, after a particularly stressful day of legal meetings, Logan returned to the penthouse to find Claire cooking dinner. The scent of something warm and comforting filled the air, and Max was babbling happily in his high chair. "Long day?" Claire asked with a small smile as Logan loosened his tie. "You have no idea," he said, his shoulders relaxing as he sat at the table. As they ate, Logan watched Claire, marveling at the resilience she exuded despite the storm looming over her. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Claire asked, her cheeks flushing under his gaze. Logan hesitated, then said, "You amaze me, Claire. The way you fight for Max, the way you keep going no matter what. I don't know how you do it." Claire's eyes softened, but there was a shadow of doubt in her expression. "I don't know how much longer I can do this, Logan. My father has money, power, and connections. I'm just me." "You're not alone in this," Logan said, his voice steady. "You have me. And I'm not going to let him win." The next morning, Logan's investigator delivered a bombshell. Buried in Charles Montgomery's financial records was evidence of illegal dealings, bribes, offshore accounts, and shady transactions that could ruin his reputation if made public. Logan sat with Claire in the penthouse, laying out the evidence in front of her. "This is our leverage," he said. "If he wants to play dirty, so can we." Claire looked at the documents, her expression conflicted. "I hate that it has to come to this," she admitted. Logan placed a hand over hers. "He left us no choice, Claire. He's the one threatening to take Max away. We're just fighting back." The legal battle reached a fever pitch when Claire's father threatened to use Logan's involvement against him. Charles's lawyers accused Logan of harboring Claire and interfering in a family matter, hinting that they would ruin his career if he didn't step aside. But Logan refused to back down. "I built my business from the ground up," Logan told Claire one night, his voice resolute. "I've fought my way through worse than Charles Montgomery. If he thinks he can scare me off, he's in for a surprise." The night before the final custody hearing, Logan and Claire sat together on the balcony, the city lights stretching out before them. Max was asleep inside, his soft snores audible through the open door. "Logan," Claire began, her voice tentative, "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. You didn't have to get involved, but you've done more for me and Max than I could have ever imagined." Logan turned to her, his expression earnest. "I didn't do it out of obligation, Claire. I did it because I care about you. About Max." Claire's breath hitched as he reached for her hand. "I don't just want to help you," Logan said, his voice filled with emotion. "I want to be part of your life. You and Max mean more to me than I ever expected." Tears welled in Claire's eyes. "I've been so scared of trusting anyone," she admitted. "But you've shown me that I don't have to do this alone anymore. You've given me more than I ever dreamed of." Logan leaned closer, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Then let me keep giving you more." For the first time in weeks, Claire smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile. The next day, armed with the evidence against Charles, Logan and Claire stood united in court. The truth about Charles's abuse and corruption came to light, and the judge ruled in Claire's favor, granting her full custody of Max. But as they left the courtroom, Charles approached Logan, his face twisted with fury. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You'll regret crossing me, Blake." Logan met his glare head-on. "Do your worst, Montgomery. I'm not afraid of you." As Claire held Max close, she looked at Logan with gratitude and trust. But deep down, she couldn't shake the fear that her father's threats weren't empty. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as the judge delivered the final ruling. "Full custody is awarded to Claire Montgomery," the judge declared, his gavel striking with finality. Additionally, the court recognizes evidence of Charles Montgomery's abusive behavior and unethical practices. His petition for custody is denied. The words washed over Claire like a tidal wave. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched Max, who giggled in her arms, oblivious to the moment's significance. She turned to Logan, whose steady presence by her side had been her anchor through it all. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Logan smiled gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to thank me, Claire. You did this. You fought for him." Across the room, Charles Montgomery stood, his face dark with rage. He glared at Logan as he was escorted out by his legal team. But his threats and power were no longer a shadow hanging over Claire's life. With the legal battle behind her, Claire began building the life she had always dreamed of for herself and Max. She decided to stay in the city, determined to give her son a stable and loving environment. Logan's penthouse remained their home for the time being, though Claire made it her own with little touches. A colorful rug in the living room, a cozy reading nook for herself, and a cheerful corner filled with toys for Max. She found work at a local nonprofit, helping struggling families find housing and employment. It was a cause close to her heart, and for the first time in years, she felt like she had a purpose beyond just surviving. Logan, meanwhile, found himself spending more and more time at home. His once unrelenting focus on his company shifted, his priorities realigning around Claire and Max. They had become his family, even if it wasn't official yet. Months later, Logan decided it was time to change that. It was a quiet evening, and the three of them were having dinner together in the penthouse. Max babbled happily in his high chair, smearing mashed peas on his face as Claire laughed and wiped him clean. Logan watched them, his heart swelling with a feeling he could no longer ignore. "Claire," he said, standing and reaching into his pocket. She looked up, curious, as Logan approached. Her eyes widened as he pulled out a small velvet box and knelt before her. "This place was just a house until you and Max made it a home," Logan began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You turned my world upside down in the best possible way. I can't imagine my life without you in it." He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant diamond ring. "Claire Montgomery, will you marry me?" Claire's breath caught, her eyes filling with tears. She glanced at Max, who giggled and clapped his hands as if he understood the gravity of the moment. "Yes," Claire said, her voice trembling with joy, "but only if you promise to let me decorate." Logan laughed, slipping the ring onto her finger. "Deal." Max squealed with delight as Logan pulled Claire into his arms, holding her close. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair held on the rooftop garden of Logan's penthouse. Friends, colleagues, and members of the community Claire had grown close to came to celebrate their love and resilience. Claire wore a simple, flowing gown that shimmered in the sunlight, while Max, now toddling around, sported a tiny suit that had everyone cooing. Logan, looking dapper in a tailored suit, couldn't take his eyes off his bride. As they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "I promise to stand by you," Logan said, his voice thick with emotion. "To be your partner in every sense of the word. To love and protect you and Max, no matter what life throws our way." Claire smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I promise to trust you," she said. "To build a life together where Max feels safe and loved every single day. You didn't just save us, Logan, you gave us a family." The celebration continued late into the evening, the rooftop lit by twinkling string lights and the glow of the city skyline. Laughter and music filled the air as guests danced and toasted the couple's happiness. At one point, Logan hoisted Max onto his shoulders, the little boys squealing with delight as they swayed to the music. Claire watched them with a full heart, marveling at how far they had come since that rainy night on the roadside. As the music softened, Logan pulled Claire close, holding her in his arms as they swayed under the stars. "You changed my life," Claire whispered, her voice barely audible over the gentle hum of the city. "That rainy night I thought it was the worst moment of my life, but it turned into the best thing that's ever happened to me." Logan kissed her forehead, his voice soft but resolute. "You and Max are the best thing that's ever happened to me, Claire. And I'm never letting you go." As they danced, surrounded by the people they loved in the city that had become their home, the past seemed like a distant memory. Together they had built something beautiful, something worth fighting for. That rainy night had changed everything. It hadn't just saved Claire and Max. It had given them, and Logan, a family. As Logan, Claire, and little Max danced under the stars, their journey reminds us of the transformative power of kindness, courage, and love. A simple act of compassion on a rainy night brought together 3 lives, creating a bond that defied all odds. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who believes in the magic of second chances. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire, move, and remind us all of the beauty in life's unexpected moments. Hit the notification bell so you never miss another heartwarming tale. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.